back. What's up? This is episode 5 of the Investors Corner with Crystal and Aneel. We're here. Crystal's remote. I'm in the office. What's going on, Crystal? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing awesome. Spring break with the kids time, so having some fun time
Cricketator,
right now.
Douglas.
Yep. So yeah, little remote like you said, but that's the blessing of getting to do what we do, right? So we get
No, this is
to
the
be anywhere,
spring break episode, okay?
right?
Yeah, I actually just came from a trip, Park City, Utah, and then also Las Vegas as well. Maybe we can share a little bit about the trip too, because we
Yeah.
did do a little bit of real estate on the trip as well. But me and Krista wanted to jump on. We wanted to talk about a topic that obviously is very dear to us. It's really our niche of real estate in our business, which is land, right? It's debunking buying land and going into some topics around land, why you should buy land. Crystal will talk about that, and then we'll go into some updates in our business. The Landfix business, as well as Texas secure land notes. So let's get started. You know what? You know, Talking about land. What are some things people really don't have a lot of information about land. I believe it's a real estate market or a niche of real estate that's often very much ignored, right? So why would you invest in land, Crystal?
Yeah, well, I would just say, why not? Why not invest in
Yeah.
land? There's so many reasons why you should, but just wanted to cover a few things. And I'm not saying that that's going to be for every state, every location, but right now there are some prime states where land is a great investment to purchase and buy. And whether it's Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, a lot of the southern states too, even Alaska as well. It's just huge opportunity right now on the land side. But
Why do you
one thing
think?
right now,
Why would someone choose one state over the other? Do you think? Is it just where the development's going? Is there favorable markets to buy land in? Because I do see that Sun Belt area um, having a lot of land activity and land acquisition activity.
yeah, I mean, just the economy alone in those states, things are not slowing down for us. Whereas Texas. I mean, you've got the Texaplex, you've got where the all the big cities are now just going together,
Convergence.
where there's limited amount of land now, so land value keeps going up. There's only so much of land that can be purchased, but there's so many people moving to not only the U.S. but say, for instance, to Texas as well in these southern states.
So, you come across people that buy land. What are some kind of misconceptions that you come across, or some questions that you get asked about buying land, or investing in land?
Yes, I would say the biggest one is it's too risky.
Oh,
And um and so what I would say to that, and everyone look is going to have their buy box or their criteria of
hmm
what they feel comfortable with. So
hmm
um I'm not trying to convince someone either way, but just sharing for us and what we do, we look at it very differently and see opportunities where maybe not a lot of people see the opportunity. But for example, if you had to foreclose, now Texas is a more friendly foreclosure state,
hmm
and that move quicker, less costs, things like that. If you had to foreclose, say for instance you had a property that's made some developments that you needed to foreclose on, and that has made some improvements to raw land, started making improvements, as opposed to then you have a residential uh, investment, a residential note that say they've got, and this
hmm
definitely happens, 20 cats, or they've got 8 dogs, or they've got a bunch of kids and have completely destroyed the inside. Well, then you're going to have to put in 30, 40, 50 grand into that residential property. Whereas on the land side, the most we've ever had to put in is less around 2000. I'll just say an even
Hmm.
2000, where we had to go in, clean up some stuff, clean up the septic, and you're good to go. And
Yeah, so
so
so you're saying like, you know, traditional property with a structure on it, that has a chance to depreciate, right?
absolutely.
It,
Yeah.
land cannot depreciate; it can only appreciate, right? And so you had mentioned offline about also, and I think that's a great point. Like, hey, if you buy a house or invest in a house, if that tenant is destroying the house or has the 20 cats, as you said, is a crazy cat lady, you that house can get damaged and it can depreciate, right? On a piece of
Absolutely.
land, more than likely, you're not going to lose money on that investment. It's going to appreciate over time. It's one of those tangible assets that appreciate over time, right?
Yeah.
Also, I want to also make the point, like, you with, I'm going all to these networking events and people talking about multifamily and commercial. Always has been a very favorable investment for many investors, right? It's a good return. It takes a lot of work to get to cash flow, but a lot of
Right.
them are hurting right now for various reasons. I think the office space and the retail space because of vacancies and people working remote, those are hurting.
Right.
Multifamily with rise in inflation as well as insurance costs, they're hurting. How
Hmm.
are these effects on these traditional commercial investments as well as these multifamily investments? How are they, helping land investments? And what do you say to people that, hey, I'm investing in multifamily. Why would I invest in land? Is it just diversification? Like, talk about a little bit about that. What you're seeing around that?
Yeah, I would say it comes down to diversifying and finding a secured cash flow, immediate
Right.
cash flow. You're not having to wait around for that cash flow. And it just seems to be a more secure, um, basically to get your passive income coming in. Whereas, sure, multifamily, commercial's great. I mean, we've done those things, but why not diversify and find something that's going to be a little bit more secure, especially in this market that I think over the next couple of years we're going to see a lot of changes too. But notes right now, especially land notes, because of it's just an area that value keeps going up. We've
Hmm.
got mass exodus of people coming out of the city wanting to find land, which even where you're doing land development, not just in Texas or in Arkansas, but also in Oklahoma, where so many people want that slice of heaven, outside of the city. And a lot of that, I think, started because of COVID. We started doing the
Oh, yeah.
land back in 2016 as a company,
Hmm.
but it wasn't until COVID hit, so many people were like, I want to get out, get out of Houston,
True.
get out of Dallas, right? And those, I mean, I lived in both cities too, but there's just something about being able to put some roots down on some land outside of the
Yeah,
city.
I think there is this shift towards, hey, I want to get out of the city. I want to have that home with acreage. I want to
Yeah,
get away. I want to shut off. I want to go off grid. There is that big shift, and you're right. It did happen around COVID because people were so locked up with these lockdowns and things like that. People's mindset has changed. Is listen, I want to get
absolutely.
away. Um, so I think this is a big one. And we're talking about debunking land buying, right? you know, a lot of people have this conception that buying land is only for the wealthy,
Mm,
right? It takes a lot of money to get into buying land. I mean, of course, with our company, we help. Our mission is to help everyday people acquire land.
yeah.
Um, I'll give you my answer, but give me, an answer where someone says, "Hey, land is too expensive. It's only for the wealthy to acquire." How would you counteract that?
I would disagree on that and say it's actually it's a great way for people to great entry. It's
Yeah,
lower cost, I
interesting.
believe,
Right,
because both of our companies are buying larger parcels of land. So we are buying the 40 to 400 acres that may not have the competitiveness or as many buyers, right? But then
right.
subdividing those tracts to make it affordable
Right.
for everyday people that still want land and some kind of acreage for the family, even want some kind of agriculture. I've never seen so many people want chickens and bees, which I love.
Yeah.
But just be able to have that and set roots for their family and just get out and have some space as opposed to you're right next to, your neighbor. But I would say for us, and I know you guys too, it's actually a cheaper entry and it's not just for the wealthy. And we also on the note side offer a partial as well, which is a cheaper entry on notes too. Someone
Right.
wanting to
Right.
invest on a residential, I mean, you're looking at 150 on up. But with a partial that we're doing with land, we're doing minimum of 20,000, which a lot of people can do.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, there is that kind of misconception. Hey, you're right. These larger parcels are sometimes harder to take down. These 500, 300, 500, to 1,000 big
Right.
acreage. And I think that's what scares people is they always see these large parcels. But companies like ours and yours and making it more accessible and affordable. I mean, we offer 1 acre tracts that you put 5% down on, and it's $200 a month for a 1 acre
Right.
plot of land, right? And you can start working on it right away. You can assess it
Right.
right away. You don't have to go to a bank and get approved. We provide that in-house financing just like you guys do. Um, One of the things that companies like ourselves are focused on is making land more accessible, making it
Mm-hmm.
a way for people to invest and get into. Because you're right, I think a lot of people see those bigger acreages and it's like, oh wow, it's 500 acres, and land values going up, the price of land
Right.
going up as well. I think people kind of get this misconception that land is not attainable for them, and also, the banks have made it that way as well. A lot
Right.
of the traditional financing routes, uh, a lot of times look at land as a riskier uh, collateral. And so many times they do not want to offer financing or loans on these type of this type of real estate. And so, I
Right.
mean, but there is, there's starting to become a lot of seller financing options like ourselves, like ours out there. But I think that's kind of held a lot of people back too. Is like, what, the bank's not going to finance it. I don't have the cash to come up with it. And so many times that misconception comes up like, oh, this is going to take too much to do. And I think also the bigger vision of the resources needed to develop, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, unless you buy a note like from yourself, which is cash flowing from day one. Just buying a plot of land, it's not producing you income right away, right? You're
Right.
really banking on the appreciation, right?
Absolutely.
Or you would need to take the next steps to actually develop it. And I think, from my experience, I've seen that is, hey, I love to buy this plot of land. But I need to see, they need to have the resources and tools to get it to a point where it will make money, where you need to, put the infrastructure in, you need to put some type of structure in there. And then, you could potentially put a renter or somebody in there to
Right.
provide some capital for it. So I think it does take a little bit more vision and savvy to get to that. But just from making the purchase, right, you're guaranteed some type of appreciation, right? No matter
Absolutely.
what.
Yeah.
Just that buy and hold strategy is immense in land acquisition and investment. And I think people need to think about that as well. It's like, hey, you look at certain areas. Right now we're in Texas. That border, Sherman, Bonham, where the development of Texas is going, those are tremendous areas to acquire land right now because you're understanding that's where the development is going. New companies are moving there, new multifamilies and apartment buildings are being built up. And so those are the things when you're looking to acquire a property or land and invest into it, you got to look at those trends, look at those development trends, right? Same thing in our property in Oklahoma. I mean, there's over $1 billion development coming north of that property. There's another,
Right.
couple $1 million development coming south of that property. And so, where are plots of land could you look at acquiring that is in that path, right? It's inevitable that the development's coming there. So I think anywhere around the country, when you look at states and when you're looking at the due diligence and the acquisition of a property to invest in, specifically land, you really have to hone in on where the path of development is going, right? So you got
Yeah.
any other tips on kind of acquiring land and to invest into besides that?
Well, I would agree with everything that you're saying. I tell people all the time, if you can hold, buy and hold it.
Right.
Even if you didn't do anything and touch it. Now, I know with you guys, with us as well, we're putting roads in, we're putting some development in with culverts and fencing and all of those things, some wells. I mean, it just depends. It's going to depend property to property. But even if you didn't do that and you just purchased a piece of land and just could afford to hold on to it, I mean, over the next 10 years, it's going to be, you're going to make a big buck on that.
Yeah, you're guaranteed appreciation and growth, right? I mean, if you can
Yeah.
afford to hold on to it, whether it's a monthly payment, I'll give you an example with a gentleman that had invested with us when we first started our property. He picked up about 5 different lots ranging from 3 to 5 acres. Okay, he financed with them from us. He put 20% down on
Yeah.
each of them. I mean, these monthly payments a few $100. It's all about price per acre. Okay, he acquired that land or those lots at around, I would say, 10,000 an acre. Okay, he's been paying them down for about a year and a half. Since then, our team, we've put in 5 miles of roads in that property. We've put electric throughout that property, right? We put some other, kind of infrastructure there, and now we're master planning it to build homes, right? So talk about appreciation. Now we just sold an acre there for 28,000 just today,
Yeah.
right? So look at that. This gentleman has been holding for just a year. All he's doing is making his payments, right?
Right.
And now on the record, the same property that he's invested in that he bought for 10,000 an acre about a year ago, we are now selling at 28,000 an acre. He's doubled
Yeah.
his value and he's done nothing. All he's done is paid his payments, right? And that's a
Yeah.
prime
That's
example of
so awesome.
let everyone else do the work. Let the developers do the work. Let the development come to that area. Just sit back and hold, right? And so land gives you that opportunity to do strategies and tactics like that, as long as you buy the right plot. Now, some are going to have
Yeah.
faster appreciation than others. That's just the game, right? There's some areas that are, they're not that much development, but no matter what, you're going to get some type of appreciation. The rate depends on the development that's happening there, but
Right.
you're no matter what, you're guaranteed some type of appreciation over time just by holding the land, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love, offering the owner financing as well because you're just making those monthly payments, which aren't that large at all.
No,
And
no.
so the entry into that is really small. That's funny that you're sharing that because we had a guy about 2 years ago purchase a property. Same thing. Ours was here in Texas, and he purchased it for around 200,000. Well, he ended up just recently turned around and sold it for he made about 250,000 on
Okay.
that property. It was about 10 acres, but he did the same thing. He had owner financed it with us, and then he saw, oh wow, this value has gone way up. He
Yeah.
still hadn't put a home on that property yet. All there was road and basic dirt, and it had already jumped. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen to every place, but for his property, the value went way up.
Yeah, and a lot of times I know a gentleman that had a piece of property in Sherman, Texas. Had it for many years. It was inherited. It was handed down. He almost forgot about it. Okay, just a 5 to 10 acre lot right there that his grandparents had basically passed down. Right now, there's a Texas Instrument plant that's being built. There's other development going on
Oh,
there. That piece of
wow.
property is kind of right in the is like a few minutes away from that Sherman that plant. He didn't even know he's sitting on a gold mine. He's getting offers for $1 million an acre over there for
Wow.
that plot of land because it's between two developments or something like that. So yeah, it's those things. Again, sometimes you get really lucky that hey, the specific development or a company's moving there, and
Yep.
others that it's going to take it's over time. You're guaranteed. It's a great way to just hold. If you have money to just move and to hold, or just make the payments and continue to grow and bet on that, you almost can't go wrong. you're going to get more return when you do your research and find areas that are
Right.
growing, areas that have land sales, and you can see developments. I've studied markets around the country, and there's certain markets that are just emerging, right?
Right.
Florida's a great one. There's a city of Ocala that I've seen a lot of land sales happen in. There's a big equestrian center there. Even last year, I was looking at a plot of land at 10,000 an acre. Knew that it was going to double, and it has. It's 25,000 an acre, that same area, right? So
Yeah.
catching those trends where you go, a lot of times you can filter on the websites what's sold in a matter of time. Even filter in the type of track you're looking for, 10 acres, 5 acres, and you can see where how many land sales happen over the last 3 months, how many land sales happen in over the last year. And that's kind of how I gauge, or where you can gauge where the activity is around land, right? And that'll tell you where to start looking for some, right? And some of the hottest markets right now are Florida, Texas, North Carolina as well,
Yeah.
Oklahoma. And these are probably the top 5 markets that you're looking at where over the last year or so, a lot of land transactions are happening. So it's a good rule of thumb to look at some of those things and see those trends. Usually that's going to give you an idea where is a good place to invest into a land purchase or a land transaction. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely. And
So,
I think you brought up a good point really quick I wanted to share is just doing your due diligence.
right.
Um, I would say not everywhere in Texas are you going to want to buy a plot of land. I mean,
Sure.
sure. I mean, if it's for you personally, to set some roots, it's one thing. But if it's for you for an investment, doing your due diligence on these areas, there's so many ways to research now and find where there's going to be growth, and things happening. And so I think, just like you're saying, doing your due diligence on those areas. There's some areas that I personally wouldn't buy in Texas that we stay away from. But again, we're going and focusing on those areas that we know that there's growth, and we know in 10 years, I mean, look at what Frisco is at right now.
Right.
I mean, I remember 20 years ago that it's nothing that it is now. It's just
Yeah.
crazy how the growth in these
It's
areas
also
are.
what you're looking for, right? There's some areas where, again, going back to what we said before, I mean, even putting your money into land is not a bad investment, period. You're not gonna lose money
Right.
technically, right? But but there's areas where there's immense growth, right? And so that's where you put the bet on. That's where you put yeah, that's where you're gonna see those returns, right? But there's certain areas, there's an oil field that is have for the last 20 years has stayed the same. Nothing has ever come there, and it's still not going to come there. But
Right. Right.
can it? A lot of people invest in these desert squares in the middle of Arizona, right? They're not gonna grow in immense value, right? But it's a good way to just hold money, maybe a little bit of appreciation over the next year or two. But you're not gonna push the needle in those type of investments, right? But you're right,
Right.
doing the due diligence. You're looking at a plot of land. What are the features in it? Is there easements? Is there road frontages? Is there utilities? Those type
Yep.
of things we always look for. So all right, so I wanted to transition. We wanted to kind of give some updates on our companies and some projects that we're working on, right? So I wanted to start with you. Of course, you're with Texas Secure Land Notes, Crystal. You're our note expert, right? The note queen, my note mentor as well. I wanted you. I don't know if we went ever on the podcast really went into kind of what you guys do. But I want to start kind of doing some segments. Maybe we have kind of a every other week type of updates on what we're working on, because I got a lot of things going on our company as well. But give me a kind of a 30,000 feet view of what Texas Secure Land Notes is, and some things that you're seeing and what you're working on today. I'd love to kind of give a little update for the listeners and the viewers.
Yeah, so and I like to just share this. It's very basic and broad, but it gives you an idea. So we buy large parcels of land throughout Texas and in Arkansas, and then we subdivide it. So I've shared this before, but we buy the whole pizza and sell by the
Mhm.
slice.
Right.
In Texas, our lots are going to be anywhere from 5 to 10 acre tracts, so little mini ranchettes. In Arkansas, they're going to be anywhere from about mostly 3 to 5 acres in Arkansas. And all of our properties are going to be outside of the city, but still close enough that you have conveniences. So anywhere from like 20 to 45 minutes. We have a lot of properties that are going to be on the outskirts of Houston, San Antonio, because people are still driving in, say 45 minutes into work every day, but still
Okay.
they get to be out of the city. And so all of our properties are going to be within about 20 to 45 minutes near a larger city, to still have the conveniences, but then you still have your
Gotcha.
land. So that's what we focus and what our business model is. We do go through a full vetting process with our borrowers. So
Hmm.
for us, we like to make sure that our underwriting is really clean and thorough. And so with our borrowers, we do go through making sure they have a certain credit score, debt to income ratio. So we will do what's called a RMLO, where that third party company verifies the ability for that borrower if they can pay or not. And
And
so we,
just to clarify, so Texas Secure Land Notes, they acquire a piece of property, they then either put some infrastructure in, whether it's a home or other utilities. Then they actually put a seller finance buyer in there, meaning, like you mentioned, with the verification and the qualification and process that they go through, right? And then
correct.
you're on the side of, so once the buyer's in there, once the property's acquired and the buyer's in there, you're on the side of it where that note is created then, and you're on the side
Correct.
of actually being able to offer that note to investors for passive investment. Is that correct?
That's correct. So there's the originating side and then
Originate
there's
that, right?
the investing and seller side. So that's what I focus on right now
Gotcha.
is selling to other investors that are looking for securing monthly cash flow coming in. And again, notes aren't as known as multifamily residential type investments, but we sell that note, i.e., mortgage, to other investors and say there's $100,000 note, excuse me, as soon as that investor pays the $100,000 note for that passive income, they start getting their monthly income immediately. And so there's no
Right.
waiting. It's just a lot of paperwork
Yeah.
moving around is
Right. I
really
mean,
what it comes down to. You can do it
yeah. I mean, you're
anywhere in the
selling
world,
paper.
which is fabulous. Yeah, you're
I mean,
just
you're
selling
selling
paper.
paper, right? So
Yeah.
what are some type of notes that are available right now? What are some returns people that if that you're offering right now? What do you see coming down the pipeline? Yeah,
Yep.
share what you got going on.
So right now we've got about 10 million available to sell.
Wow.
And those are anywhere from a range of 50,000 on to I've got some that are over 300,000, 320,000.
Wow.
But our terms are around, on average, I would say 10 to 12%. So double
Wow.
digit return, as well as then about 15 years is the term with the borrower. Some I have less, some I have a little bit longer as well. But what's great, we also offer what's called a partial, which you can buy. You don't have to buy the whole note, but you can just buy a part of a note, which is a little bit more complicated. But we minimum of 20,000, so the entry is a lot less there, and then they can purchase still a note and get their monthly cash flow coming in, even buying a partial.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So if it's a 20-year mortgage note, you can actually buy 5 years of it. So if you don't have the 100,000 or whatever it may be, you can buy a portion of it. Wow.
Right.
So let me ask you, do you have to
Yeah.
be an accredited investor? Could this be anybody? Could anybody buy these or
It can be anybody. It could be non-accredited, accredited. We do both. I like to work with single moms as well, helping them just start investing. Some that have funds in a bank just sitting there. I mean, your bank's not giving you much of a return. People with self-directed IRAs,
right?
just get your money working. And we know with it compounding over years, that grows so fast. So instead of it just sitting there, getting it to work, even if it's a smaller amount. Yes, you can buy X amount of years on a partial, or you say, hey, I don't have, pay 100,000 to buy this note, but I've got, say, 35,000. Can you make my
Right.
money work for me? Absolutely. And you could still purchase a partial of a note.
So that's
And what,
interesting. I mean, go ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to say, and we do with our notes, so we want to make sure that our investors are happy. And so we will help reload and things like that, especially to a newer investor that doesn't know how to do that process. But typically, I guess historically, our foreclosure rate has been anywhere from 2 to 4%. But if
Mm-hmm.
that had to happen, Texas is one of the best places, like I said, on foreclosure.
Foreclosure,
And
quicker
so,
process. It doesn't take as long,
yeah,
and you can get them out there. And
yeah,
that's a big point too. You want to go for non-judicial states. There's certain states that if you're holding a note in
right,
and that that borrower does get foreclosed on, it's a much longer process. That's probably the biggest risk of being a note holder or investor is that borrower defaulting, right? You want to be in states
right,
where the foreclosure rate or foreclosure process is more landowner or I'm sorry, owner friendly than the borrower friendly,
right,
right?
right.
So
Lender
that's great.
friendly
Yeah,
for
I've seen
sure.
some of these
Yeah,
notes. I mean, double-digit returns as an investor is huge. Moving some of that money from your IRA is a great point as well. So yeah, well, it looks like you got a lot of inventory and a lot of notes coming through the pipeline, right? I've seen some
yeah,
of them. It's
it's
amazing.
exciting.
Some of the bars that you got in there, things are just starting because you sell these notes right before they even make the first payment in many cases. So you
Some
can
I
get
do to
kind of
some
that.
investors. Yeah,
Yeah, you can get in on that the early part of those loans where is probably the most profitable, right? Make that money work
absolutely.
for you. That's what Crystal's saying with these notes. So,
Right.
so yeah, I want to provide some updates too, Crystal, on Landfix.
Let's
It's
hear
an
it.
exciting time. It's an exciting time right now for the company. We we of course I've mentioned a few times on this podcast and the Landfix podcast. Shout out to the Landfix Real Estate podcast as well. Go check that out on Spotify. We've been providing a lot of updates on that too. It's that the podcast has been great for us because we've been kind of giving you a behind the scenes of our mindset as we've been developing the company and the projects that are associated with it, right? And so one of our first projects has been a beautiful property out in on Lake Eufaula in Oklahoma. I think I've talked to you about this, Crystal, a few times, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and this property, we've been working on it for about a year and a half. And it's amazing to see the twists and turns of a development, of where, things that you see coming and some things you don't see and how you learn from them and how you pivot.
Mm.
When we first started there, honestly, it was this beautiful 600-acre property. We were very, it was amazing just for us to acquire the property. It was really a hidden gem. It's a 600 beautiful property. It's a peninsula. It's almost our own island on Oklahoma's largest lake, right? And when we got there, obviously, the subdividing processes. You have to take that 600 acres and you have to break it down, right, to offer it
Right.
as lots. And so we took it through the first stage, and of course, we were very early on, and we took it to the stage of subdividing it, and it broke down to about 80 to 100 lots, ranging from I would say 3 to 20 acres or so. We then started pre-selling it later that year. The survey process took a while too, but we started pre-selling it that later that year. Tremendous response on because we have about 100 acres of it was the old lakeside lakefront, right? And we got a lot of folks from Texas looking at the lakeside property, seeing how honestly probably too cheap for lakefront property, but compared to Texas, it was a great deal, as well as the property taxes being very low out there. So we were very fortunate to have these first people, kind of first wave of folks, to acquire the. Like I mentioned, that gentleman early on. I mean, they did take a bet on us. I mean, at that time, it was just a raw property. The survey was not completed. There was no
Mm.
access to these lots yet. There was no roads defined. The survey was in process. But they saw it just like we saw it. And they invested early on, and so they not only got the land for much cheaper, but now they're taking now since then we've put 5 miles of roads in, we've put power in, a lot of twists and turns since then. And we've always seen this property could become something bigger. Now we're generally in the business of acquiring land, subdividing it, and offering it seller financed right through our website, right? And what we kind of doing the horizontal infrastructure is what we've done so far. But when we kind of saw where this property was going back to what I said earlier, a lot of folks were looking at acquiring the land, but they were like, "Hey, I wish there was an option to put a home on it, or I wish there was already homes on it."
Yeah.
And we started doing kind of the comparables to developments in the area who were just listen, they were on the same lake. They're farther from Dallas, but they're just a little further in development, right? We were noticing that their properties with homes on them were going for 80,000 to 100,000 an acre, maybe more. And so taking in that data, also understanding that there is not any new construction in that area,
Hmm.
there is uh, a need and a want for lake homes, right? And housing in general. We've now decided to pull the trigger and actually develop and master plan that community.
Awesome. Wow. That's
Right?
exciting. Yeah.
It is. It
I
is.
love
And
that.
yeah, and it's a different trajectory for us. It's a new
Yeah.
trajectory for us. It's a new phase, right? It's going from horizontal development, which, listen, I'll be honest, I have a new appreciation for the underground sidewalks, the water, the power,
Right?
we take that for granted, right? Like, you got a
Yeah.
house and all that's already put in. You're like, oh well, the city takes care of that. That stuff is probably the most intensive, the most expensive, and probably the hardest things to do. And so,
Yeah.
like, I mean, vertical is its own thing, and I'm sure there's a lot of new things that we'll learn as we start doing this kind of vertical development. Um, but man, do I have appreciation for the infrastructure side of this. And as you know, you have experience with that too, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's like anything, the unexpected, but as you go, you learn, you grow, make mistakes, and then you know what not to do next time. But that's really exciting what you guys are building out there. It's going to be
Yeah, and so
gorgeous because it's a
yeah,
gorgeous place.
yeah, it's gonna be, yeah, and it's so we've taken the step of putting out like an RFP to architects. Our goal is to get a response, get 3 or 4 plans that we can hone in on. We have one beautiful lake view lot that has an elevated view of the lake that we'll put our first kind of model home on.
Yeah.
That's where people can
Nice.
come, can see the 3 to 4 plans. Our lots that we've assigned for this development will be broken down a little bit for more. We'll have a section for kind of more of estate homes and then more affordable homes. And then we're also going to work some creative deals with some builders as well, being able to have them build up as well. And so, yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it's super exciting. It's super kind of, I would say it's exciting, but it's also like, me and Chris talk about it all the time. Is understanding what we don't know. There's a
Hmm.
lot of things that early on when we were first setting these, working on this property, it's like, man, if someone just tapped us on the shoulder and told us this, like little piece, to save so much. So I'm hoping someone can come and just give us some of this advice, because it's the things that we don't know coming up that are
Yeah.
coming up. You know what I mean? And it'll save us time. But again, it's another chapter, it's another phase in the development of this property, and the story of this property. Our owners obviously are super excited. The people that already have lots there are super excited. We are as
Yeah.
well, and we're looking forward to kind of the next phase there, with that development, Eufaula Lake Private Estates, which is exciting, right? And then also
Hmm.
we have another property that's gaining a lot of traction. It's called Antlers Reserve. Different phase, I mean, different vibe, different type of property. It's in the Kiamichi Mountains, kind of in the foothills of it. It's a beautiful property. We've been working on that for about a year or so now. Just putting a little bit of infrastructure, just trails and things, and we're starting to see a lot of interest there. We mapped out about 43 lots that are 1 or 2 acres by the highway there, that we're offering. But we're also doing something really unique, which is gaining a lot of traction, I guess, is the 400 to 500 acres in the back. We're actually offering folks to get custom parcels of 10 acres and up.
Nice.
So like they'll come out, they'll walk it, we'll map out like a custom lot for them, send it to survey, and boom, they got their own custom parcels. Now I can't do that forever, because I got the survey going on, but that has been
Right.
that has been very, very popular so far as we've been offering that property. So yeah, it's been good. Again, we're
I
learning a
like
lot.
it.
But yeah, if anyone interested in that, check out landfix.com or reach out to me directly for any questions about that. But I think it's spring. What I'm learning about this land business is it's not seasonal per se, but you really there's an ebb and flow to it. I think
Sure.
the fall and winter, you get kind of it's a great time to game plan for the spring, get your marketing in piece, the development things done, and then spring is really go time for the business. Is what I've learned over the last year and a half or so. People want to get out, people want to go look at the land and can. A lot of times it's
Right.
winter, and you get out of the you get the spring colors and the fall. The fall's kind of getting out of there, and so you go into spring
Yeah.
summer. That's where the requests pick up. That's where more showings pick up, sales as well. So spring is kind of a pivotal point for anyone in the land business, I think. You see the same
Love
thing?
it. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I would totally agree. Things just over this last month or since March has been picking up more, for sure, just
Yeah, for
since
sure. All
springtime.
right. So this is a good little I think we debunked some of the land buying, brought some good kind of nuggets on investing in land overall, our kind of core business, right? We got to learn about Texas Secure Land Notes and the notes you have available, right? I think those are exciting. I think they should reach out to anyone that want to get invested in those. I know we're looking to acquire a few of them as well. And I got to give you a little update of our projects. I'm super excited for. So, Crystal, you want to leave us with some closing remarks or anything you want to jump on in this spring break episode?
Yeah, just thanks for listening and reach out if you've got any questions. But it's an exciting time. Jump in. Don't let your money just sit there and not be working for you. So that's what I would close with.
Yeah,
Get
guys,
your money working, even if
get
it's
your money
small
working,
amounts.
make your money moving, make your money move. Don't let it just sit in the bank. Don't let it just sit in the IRA and invest in land. All right. This is Aneel and Crystal with the Investors Corner. Thanks for checking us out. We'll see you next time.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.